At Talus, we know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything, but with Talus, you can secure what matters most. With Talus industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities, anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Talus to protect what matters most. Applications, data, and identities. That's Talus, T-H-A-L-E-S. Learn more at talusgroup.com/cyber.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Hello, and welcome to Dyslexia Devoted, the podcast dedicated to building awareness, understanding, and strategies to help those with dyslexia. I'm your host, Lisa Parnello, dyslexia therapist and founder of Parnello Education Services. Join me as we dive into today's episode of Dyslexia Devoted. Hello, and welcome to episode 132 of Dyslexia Devoted, all about customizing student support plans. Each year, we have to come up with a new plan and a new routine, which is pretty much the story of my life right now. I am currently working at 3 different schools, plus my office, plus 1 or 2 clients I have to see offsite for various reasons. And I don't have a routine yet. More like I have one, but I'm really not used to it yet. So every minute of my day is scheduled, including drive time between locations, which means this podcast is definitely not scheduled into that routine. So I am coming to you from a lunch break in the middle of my day in between being on 2 different schools, since I literally have to drive past my office to get to the next school anyway. So because I work with so many different kids at so many different levels with different needs, every kid has their own plan. It's actually why I only do one-on-one work. I've never agreed to do group work as a business. I did it when I worked in a school, but in terms of people who are paying me extra money outside of school, I'd rather make it exactly what their kid needs, because that's the whole point. And so let's talk about the different ways that you can customize a plan to meet student needs, because every school is different. As I'm seeing the vast differences between the schools I'm in. I'm in everything from a very strict sit-in-rows Catholic school to a very free-spirited Montessori where kids run around in sock feet and sit wherever they want. And it's structured, but just structured in a very different way. And then one that's a more traditional kind of classroom where there's like not quite so strict rows, a little bit more group work, kind of like a structure you would see in a public school, but you know, maybe there might be a co-teaching situation depending on the classroom, that kind of thing. So I'm seeing all of it. So how do we customize for a particular kid? What does that look like? So sometimes it starts as a phased level of support. So for example, the Catholic school I'm going into this year, I did not go into last year. Instead, that student came to me for very intensive one-on-one, hour and a half a day last school year. And yes, I know, hour and a half of one-on-one is a lot, but this kiddo needed it. So now that he's made so much progress in these last couple of years, the plan is for me to support in the classroom. So eventually he doesn't need me at all. To go from super intensive to gradual release of me supporting him in a classroom with his classmates into no longer needing me at all would be theoretically the goal. So your job as a parent or educator is to decide where should that phase out happen? Where do they need less and less support, and what does that look like? So is it just checking in with homework? So I have a few kids who've already made it through all of the Wilson reading system. So now they only come to me after school when they need support with homework, and in the summer they don't come to me at all because there isn't any homework in the summer, or very little. And then I have other kids who are in fully intensive. They come to me on a strict routine once or twice a week, getting direct instruction how to remediate their skills. Then I have a few kids who we've been doing that routine for a long time where they're getting that direct instruction when they come to me, but then we also start phasing in more of their schoolwork. How do we generalize the skills that they're learning during intervention into what it looks like in the classroom? So having them practice reading text that is at their grade level from their given assignments. How do we work on essays together so they can practice using the spelling patterns they've learned with me and applying them into essay writing? So many times a kid knows something in isolation and then they're in the middle of writing an essay and it all goes right out the window. So sometimes they need that in between where somebody is supporting them to help them generalize those skills when they need a little reminder that, hey, what happens in this office doesn't just disappear as soon as you walk out the door. You see it all the time with speech class. Kids who can produce perfect speech articulation in their speech class, but the second you throw them out into the wild, it all falls apart, which is actually why I do a lot of articulation work in my office as well, because I know some of these kids have speech intervention, but that does not mean they're applying it out in the real world. So any way that we can to create a cohesive connection between the different services, between speech and the main classroom and home and tutoring, and if we can combine any of those together in any way possible, that is the best strategy, because then we can come at it from all angles and it's not just coming from one person. There's one kiddo who I've been working with, and we've been working on reading and decoding and fluency skills, as well as being able to do retell and comprehension. So a lot of our things have been taking a writing prompt and having him tell it back to me in sentences. What is it asking you to do? If he has to do a reading assignment, it's telling it back to me. What is that assignment that you read and what was it about? And they go, I don't know. So creating a structure. So this is a great time of year to create a structure for a child. When somebody asks you a comprehension question, that means if they ask you for a summary, you should tell them who did what, when, and why did they do it. And that in and of itself will automatically give you a much more clear answer. When you tell someone, summarize this, that's too vague of an answer. And you need to be able to give a child with learning differences very specific expectations of what does that response look like. And so this time of year is a great time to create a support plan of what is the goal for that child for this year and how will it look when they can do it. So one of my students, the goal for him this year is to be able to read or listen to directions and understand what they're asking him to do. 98% of the time he does the wrong thing, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he doesn't understand the concept. It's that he doesn't understand the directions. It is the language part of his language-based learning disability that's holding him back. He has no idea what the teacher's talking to him about, but as soon as I explained it to him more clearly, he goes, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do? But he doesn't get that on his own. So that's what our goal of this year is. What were the directions? What did they want you to do? And that is not as easy as it sounds sometimes. For another student, it's being able to write good essays by the time they have to apply for different schools next year. So during our time together, it's all about how do we write a good essay? What does that good quality essay look like? And each year the plan can change because students make progress over time. So the plan that was in place last year may or may not be a great plan for this year. Sometimes they need less support. Sometimes they need more support. Sometimes they're doing just fine in second grade, and then all of a sudden the step goes up for third grade and they're struggling again. So it is time to create a good plan for this year of what is the goal. And the big thing is telling kids the goal. So many times the parents and the adults meet and they make a goal and a plan without ever talking to the kid about what the goal is for the year. And so many kids are willing to work toward a goal if you just tell them what it is. So this is your challenge this week, is to come up with a plan. What is a reasonable goal for that child? It doesn't have to be like a formal IEP goal. It just has to be a goal for what is the structure of how we're going to support you. What is our main goal of that support? When is it going to happen? And how are we going to do it? And loop the child in on that goal so that they can work toward it as well. All right, I have to start wrapping up this episode because, like I said, I'm literally recording this right in between being at 2 different school sites. I had just enough time to come to my office, answer some emails, and record a podcast, and then off I go to the next school. So, recapping, the beginning of the year is a great time to develop a specific support plan for a child. What does it look like? When will they get support? Who is supporting them? And what is it going to look like? Bonus, if you can create a plan for when you're going to follow up on it to make sure it's actually happening and if it's actually working. Oftentimes, I'm guilty of this myself. We make a plan, we decide we're going to do it, and then you go to write an update in 2 months in November and go, wait a minute, we didn't actually end up doing that thing we said we were going to do. Or we tried doing it, but it really wasn't that great of a plan. It didn't work out so great. So creating a plan of what does the support system look like, who is helping with it, and how is it working? Is it working? Do we need to change the plan? So coming up with, I've learned about 3 weeks is a good time frame to check back in with yourself. So sometimes it's just a little calendar invite to yourself that says check in on so-and-so's plan to make sure that the plan is working and that it's being implemented. And if either of those things aren't happening, fix the plan so that it is implemented and it is starting to work to achieve the goal. And lastly, make sure the student knows what the goal is. Make sure the student knows what the support plan is so they know who to go to when they're struggling. Because so many times kids will suffer in isolation because they don't know who they're supposed to talk to when they're suffering. They don't know who they're supposed to go to when they need help, especially if you got many specialists, or they only see their specialists on Tuesdays and it happens to be Wednesday and they need help today. Who do they go to then? Use this next week or so, create a plan, and if you have any great support plans, I would love to know, how do you work them out? How do you check in on them? All right, that's it for today. I hope to see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you want to learn even more about dyslexia, check out parnelloeducation.com/courses. See you next time.